right, welcome everybody back to another episode of the Big Doug and Carmi Show, your one-stop shop for all things Commanders. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button so that you never miss an episode like today's episode with Ethan Cutto from Monumental Sports Net. Ethan, it's been a while. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. Excited to be back on the Commanders beat and back on the show. So all things are great.
Took a couple years to kind of do the Caps beat. I know you said you got ramped back up a little bit last year. So I'm curious from 2022 till now, I mean, must look like a different planet out on asphalt.
Yeah. So the 2023 season was the only full one that I wasn't really out there. Got moved to the Caps beat about a month or two after the 2022 season had ended. So February 2023 moved to the Caps beat, and then didn't do anything Commanders 2023. And then I got back in the swing of things, helping out with our podcast, Beltway Football, after week one last year. So picked a good time to ramp back up. Got to experience all the magic from last year from the press box, and excited for this year and years to come.
George, you've been out for a couple of weeks. You're back with the fresh polo on. Maybe feel a little underdressed. How have you been?
I'm doing really good, man. Happy to be back here. It's funny you guys bring up how things have changed over the past couple of years. So I went to training camp on Tuesday, and I was just awestruck, man. I walked up there, and I was like, man, there's stadiums, there's seating here now. I remember a couple of years ago, people were bringing foldable chairs. There was like 4 or 5 people that are out watching this. And then now you're seeing Jaden Daniels like a rock star walking up and down the field. It's actually fantastic. So happy to be back here, guys. Happy to talk football with you guys.
Couldn't have been anything quite like Jaden Daniels last time you were covering the team, Ethan. I mean, I know you were there last time, but I mean, they were in purgatory for quite some time.
Yeah, I don't know if they've had anything like Jaden Daniels ever. I mean, it's been at least, I mean, you could go back to the late 80s, early 90s, probably the last time they had this good of quarterback play, relatively speaking. But I don't think they've ever had a player that can do what Jaden Daniels does.
Mm-hmm. I think the biggest attention getter was RG3 back in 2012, the only comparable thing we have here. So let's get into it, Ethan. Talk about training camp, man. So obviously a lot going on coming up for 12-5 season. Teams looking pretty hot. In your opinion, going into this first week, we just had a week past of training camp. What's the biggest story that you were looking for coming into training camp, not named Terry McLaurin?
Yeah, you took away the easy answer there.
Terry's cheating, Ethan.
I would say the biggest story that's kind of turned into proven correct, in my opinion, was how Deebo Samuel looks. I mean, all offseason we heard, oh, he might not be in shape, or that's the reason why San Francisco moved on for him. He requested a trade. How will he fit in? XYZ. He's been, besides Jaden, their best offensive player at camp. I mean, I was out there for 4 of the 6 days so far, and he's seemed to make at least one big play every single session I've been at. I mean, yesterday he caught that long one down the side. The first play of 11-on-11s in training camp last Wednesday was a slot fade touchdown from Jaden to Deebo. He's looked the part. He's saying all the right things. I mean, it's hard to imagine him being the player he was in 2021 when he had 1,400 plus yards. I think he had 14 touchdowns, 6 were on the ground. Like, he really could do it all. I don't think the Commanders are expecting that version, nor is he should they expect that version. But I do think his versatility and skill set is something that this offense hasn't really had in years past. I mean, maybe Curtis Samuel was a little bit of a light version of that. But if Deebo Samuel can stay healthy and he looks the part through the first week of camp, I know it's only been a week, but he's really impressed me so far, and I'm really excited to see what he does this year.
I'm curious. That's even the coaching staff to me is interesting. The way they have this thing set up, they're very particular on the way they do things. All the way to, my understanding is they gave the verbiage, which this is like a big deal. I think they gave the verbiage to Jaden Daniels, quarterback coach, so they could be doing the same thing the whole offseason as when he gets to camp. I thought that was interesting. That takes a lot of trust by the organization for a guy that isn't actually part of the organization. The other thing is, you mentioned, we were talking about Deebo Samuel. They bring in Wes Welker for the wide receiver coach, which I think people forget about. Like, this group that's in charge is very deliberate in the way they do things, and I find it really interesting. Like the minutiae, they talk all the way up to the owner about winning in the edges, and this feels like how you do that.
100%. I think a good point to add to that is the continuity they've had from last year to this year. Losing Cliff Kingsbury would have been a massive loss. Nope, he's back. Same with a bunch of their coaches on the offensive staff. And I think that's so important for a guy, especially Jaden, going from year one to year two. Like, he defied all expectations and then some as a rookie, right? But CJ Stroud kind of did that the year before. And then last year, there's a bunch of turnover. I believe the Texans had a new OC. It didn't look the same. I mean, he's still a really good quarterback in this league, don't get me wrong, but he wasn't the MVP caliber quarterback that the Texans thought he was going to be last year. I think the continuity that the Washington offense has with Jaden should really allow him to take that sophomore jump rather than have this sophomore slump that people are just randomly throwing around the internet, no basis behind.
I think Adam Peters did a great job of what to do with a young quarterback, right? Keeping the continuity with the offensive coordinator, fulfilling that two offensive tackles, getting Laramie Tunsil and Josh Conley building around him, and adding Deebo Samuel there. That being said, Ethan, obviously Terry is gone for the time being. Are there any benefits do you see by having him being absent for the first week of training camp? Do you think more people are getting more reps, or is Deebo Samuel forming that connection now, or what are you thinking?
I would say the more reps is a benefit, but the way they've been dividing them up is a little interesting. Chris Moore has kind of been the guy who's been running with the ones in Terry's place. And you can look at that one of two ways. One, the coaching staff, you can look at it as if maybe the coaching staff likes him and wants to see him in that role, or they think a deal is going to get done soon and he could be back, and it's kind of more of a placeholder. I think for someone like Deebo forming that chemistry with Jaden, that was going to happen regardless if Terry is there or not. I mean, Deebo's been playing a lot in the slot and on the inside. Terry, while he goes there, I think last year he was mainly on the outside as well. So I think those two don't have to be mutually exclusive. Whereas someone like Chris Moore's been getting a lot of run, Luke McCaffrey's been playing a lot with the ones too. I think it is beneficial for a receiver room where there's going to be a name or two that doesn't make the team, like Michael Gallup. I think he'll make the team, but if they keep 6 or 7, you never know. So I think the extra reps helps the depth, but I think every single person in Ashburn would rather have number 17 there than kind of going through with what's going on right now.
Who feels like the player beside Deebo, but because I feel like he was always going to be wide receiver 2 or offensive weapon 1, but as far as like guys are going to line up on the outside, who has gotten the most benefit from not having 17 there?
Yeah, I think it's Chris Moore just because he's been getting the reps, but I mean it's hard to tell, especially because they've only had 2 padded practices. The 11 sessions are also really good, but they rotate the personnel so much too. I think it's not necessarily one individual player who benefits the most, but more guys that would be running with the 3s are getting bumped up to the 2s and 2s getting bumped up to the 1s and vice versa. So I would go with that probably.
Gotcha.
It real quick, George, it's kind of hard to, it's early on in the process, but I think of a guy like Noah Brown who was on his way to 700 yards last year before he got hurt in what was really just a freaky, weird accident. Like, is that the guy you think they expect to be running opposite of Terry when all is said and done?
I would think so. He had that little mini camp injury scare. It was good to see him out at the beginning of training camp. He's kind of been working in and working out. There's been a bunch of vet rest days already, like Marcus Mariota hasn't practiced 2 days in a row. We've seen Zach Ertz, Von Miller, etc. Those guys get off. So it is still really early. I do think they expect Noah Brown to have a decent role in this office. I mean, like you said, last year, he was on his way to 700 yards. There were games where he was getting 7, 8, 9 targets, and you're like, oh, why is he getting the ball so much? And Terry's kind of sitting over there with 3 or 4, but that's kind of just how the offense was rolling last year. I mean, Jaden's throwing 2s open, and they kind of had a nice little connection too before the unfortunate injury. But I do think Noah Brown, he's excited to be here. If he can stay healthy, I think he should have a decent role in the offense.
So staying on wide receivers, I omitted Terry McLaurin from the first question. I'm going to bring it right back right now, right? So Terry McLaurin, where do you fall on the whole continuum, Ethan? Do you think he should get paid above $30 million? There's been a lot of reports going back and forth. We saw the Cortland Sutton deal coming in around 23, I believe, was his contract, if I understand correctly. Where do you stand? Are you getting fatigued by this? Do you think Terry should be, have a compromise, or where do you stand on the whole contract issue?
Yeah, it's tough because I understand both sides. Like, I understand the Commander side, where they're using his age as the main factor as to why he should get X amount of dollars, whereas he's been in the league for 6 years, not 8, and his production, he had the second most TDs in the league last year. I think there's room in the middle, obviously, and neither side has gotten there yet. I think him asking for Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase money, if true, I don't know if that's true, but that's been the rumor going around. If true, like, I think anyone can look in the mirror and be like, he's not that caliber guy. And he's still a great receiver, but those guys are just out of this world, like different level caliber player. But also you look at Cortland Sutton's numbers and you're like, yeah, they have somewhat comparable stats, but Terry McLaurin's a better receiver than Cortland
Tier
Sutton.
above him. I agree with that.
Yeah. So I don't think he should be getting comped in that same tier around 23, 24 mil. I think there's a sweet spot anywhere from 27 to 30 million per year average. The guarantees obviously have to be right, but I've said from the jump, at least in my personal opinion, if they did 3 for 90 with 60 guaranteeing the first 2, that seems like a good number for all parties involved. But obviously I'm not here to count pockets. Like if he feels like he deserves more, then he feels like he deserves more. My question is, if he does hit free agency in 2 years, if they were to keep him and then franchise tag him, does he think he's getting more? Because at that point he'd be 32 years old, and I don't think anyone's paying a 32-year-old Terry McLaurin $30+ million annually. So it's definitely a tough dilemma. I think the agent part plays a factor too, where Terry is by far his agent's biggest client. So I think that does play a role, whether small or big. But yeah, I'm interested to see where it goes. I think a resolution needs to come probably sooner than later. You don't want it to happen in right before week 1. It would help everyone if they could just solve this standoff.
Yeah, I mean, the guy from San Francisco, Ayuk, didn't get paid, I think, until August 30th. So, I mean, if you go that way, and Von Miller, when he got his deal in Denver, when Adam Peters was there, I believe, was late. Ethan, you've been around the industry for a long time. It felt like after Terry did a press conference, if you will, at the Eastern Motors deal, it was not long afterwards that we get a leak from Adam Schefter. Adam Schefter has not been privy. Nobody, to me, has been privy to what's going on inside that front office. But that felt like the first time to me that maybe Adam Peters had made a phone call to get the word out to even things up, if you will. You don't see it that way, or?
I can see it that way. I think what Adam Peters and the Commanders have a lot more of in this situation is the leverage. He has the 1 year left on his deal. They can franchise tag him. And even if they were to franchise tag him next year, the total annual money combining the 2 years would be well less than what he's asking for. I don't think either side is really the petty side, which is why I feel like it's been pretty tight-lipped. And since really Adam Peters has got here, a lot of the moves Washington has made has been pretty tight-lipped. You don't really hear about it until it's done. So while there is a little bit more public negotiation with what Terry did at the Eastern Motor Shoot versus maybe the Schefter leak, not sure where that came from, but I don't think we'll really hear too much more until either this gets done or Terry requests a trade.
It's an interesting dilemma too. Adam Peters is definitely fighting through it. You know, we have Terry McLaurin's been a good soldier, been showing up to camp and outperforming for years with multiple quarterbacks. But at the same time, you see that like long-term perspective, right? You see Marshawn Lattimore, Laramie Tunsil, Deron Payne, even Frankie Louvu, Brian Robinson. They're all upcoming free agents. You got to find a way to prioritize all of them. So it's definitely pretty interesting there.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I would say, that being said, where do you think it falls? Do you think he's going to be signed before the first preseason game, or do you think this is more of a long-term thing in your opinion? Or where do you land there?
I don't know if it'll be before the first preseason game, considering that's next week. But I would be more surprised than not if a deal is not done before week 1. I know in San Francisco, like Doug, you mentioned, a couple of those deals went down to the week of. I don't think either party wants it to go down to the week of, but I think the closer you get to week 1, maybe one side or the other is more willing to cave to kind of get this done and over with. I mean, look, I think he deserves a raise, definitely. I mean, he's outperformed the extension he signed 3 years ago. Like I said earlier, I don't think he's in the Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb tier, but he should be getting what Brandon Ayuk's getting. I mean, he's been better than Brandon Ayuk, even though he's older. So I don't really see an issue with him asking for around 30 million. I think when you kind of go higher than that, maybe that's out kicking your coverage a little bit. But I also understand, like you said, George, where the team has a lot of younger, important pieces that they need to sign for the long-term future. And let's not forget, like, we have 2 more years of Jaden before he's going to want that extension. And that's the one deal where you got to get that done the summer after his 3rd year. You can't let that linger. So I think that's also in the back of Adam Peters' minds as he tries to make this outlook for 3 to 5 years.
And that, moving off this, but that's the one thing where I don't understand. It can't be the 3 years, right? Because it feels like 3 years actually aligns with what they're trying to do right now. I still believe it's something about the guaranteed money, not the years, because the 3 years, he's 33, is perfect timing because all the guys you brought in about to get new contracts at the same time. So that never, the 3 years at his age never was the deal to me. It's got to be what they're asking in the guarantees. Let's switch gears a little bit. There's a couple guys from last year I'm curious about, Ethan, as you've been out to camp. Tyler Owens was a huge name last year. It sounds like he's getting work at least a little bit with the starters. And then on the same side of the ball, I know they were really high on McGee and had lofty expectations for him last year before he gets hurt in camp. How have those two looked to you so far?
Yeah, both of those two have impressed me. I think the number one thing when looking at both of them is their physicality. And it's hard to tell because they've only been in pads for a couple days. And even so, they're not going 100%. But that big run the other day that the Commanders posted by Bill Merritt as he's going by, he would have got lit up by Owens if they were running full 100%. So I think those are two guys that'll really benefit from the joint practice next week in New England and the 3 preseason games, because those guys they had high expectations, they've performed, but they don't really come with a lot of draft status either. So for me, I look at it as they still feel like they have a lot to prove, and they should feel like they have a lot to prove. I mean, McGee, he's behind 2 really good linebackers right now. Like, maybe he'll get in the mix, get some snaps there, but a path to legit full-time playing time is just not there right now, at least in my opinion. Owens, the safeties are a little bit more up in the air. I think there is a little bit more competition back there than maybe people think or realize from the outside. But I think both those guys, they're probably just counting down the hours until the first preseason game where they can truly hit someone.
I love the fact that you brought up the joint practices. I think that's when you really get to see who stands out during training camp, right? That being said, Ethan, like, I know the popular name is Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt. He's potentially one of the biggest standouts in training camp right now. Do you see it that same way, or is there another player that pops in your opinion that really has been a standout to you, while you're watching practice?
Yeah, he's been really good. I mean, I think there's a reason why a lot of people on the beat have been kind of hyping him up. I think he's looked the part. I'm not ready to full on be he's going to play a huge role in this offense. I mean, then again, he is a 7th round running back. I know the ineligibility issue and all the kind of stuff he had to deal with last year definitely pushed him down. Like, he's definitely more talented than where he was drafted. But I mean, you have Brian Robinson, who is expected to get those early down work. Austin Eckler, who when healthy is one of the better 3rd down backs in the league. And we've also seen him in a full-time role excel when he was with the Chargers. So, and then there's other guys like Mick Nichols. I know that's a player that the staff has liked in the past. So there's definitely not a clear path for Bill Merritt to have a lot of run right away. I definitely think if he stands out in the preseason, he could earn himself like a decent amount of work. But just if you go on Twitter, it kind of seems like people are saying, oh, this guy's you should draft him in like the 11th round of your fantasy drafts. Like, he's going to play a big role right away. I'm just not sure.
That's me. I say that on Twitter. That's me.
No, I was not talking about you for sure. But I think it's just a little bit, it's easy to get hyped up. Football's back, week 1 of camp. Every team, all 32 teams, their fan bases are optimistic at this point of year. And he's looked good. Anytime you have an explosive player that maybe kind of feels like a steal that you want them to be at the best of their abilities. So I'm excited to see what he does in the preseason. It reminds me a little bit of the Jarrett Patterson situation a couple years ago, but I think Bill Merritt's definitely a better running back. Like, I don't want to put them in the same class, but if you remember the at least the local hype around Jarrett Patterson, since he's from here, produced at Buffalo, all that. That's kind of what it reminds me a little bit, even if their playing styles are vastly different.
I was hoping you were going to compare to 2012 Alfred Morris, but I guess we'll take Patterson in a pinch.
Yeah, I think they run a little bit different. I mean, Merritt's definitely a physical back, but Morris, maybe it was just because of those shoulder pads.
I just meant because, he was not supposed to be the starter in 2012. And then training camp came and they couldn't get him off the field. I wonder if that's a similar situation. I also wonder if it's easier to keep McNichols and Rodriguez, one of those two, on the practice squad, whereas I feel like if Lil Bill gets there, he gets
he's gone. Yeah.
Right. That's my concern there.
Yeah, I think he's going to make the roster. I think those will be the three running backs. I think if they were to keep a fourth right now, it would probably be McNichols, just because he has that good reputation with the staff. But I don't think either McNichols or Rodriguez are players that, look, if you try to put them on the practice squad and they get signed elsewhere, like, good luck, best of luck, hope you succeed elsewhere. Whereas, like, if Bill Merritt, if for some reason they cut him, yeah, he's going to get signed, and I don't think Commanders fans are going to let the front office down about that for a very long time.
I agree. There's a couple players. I was looking at the chat here with the football gauntlet about Johnny Newton. I'm curious how he's going to get playing time, if Ken Law is going to be one of those starting defensive tackles. We've had, as we get to the offensive side, I think the same kind of thing goes for Senate, where it's like, here's a guy that they spent good draft capital on. They want to see him play. Both those guys are former second round picks, but it's how do we get them on the field? Where do you see? I know those are two different kind of questions, but how do we get these guys that we spent good draft capital on the field?
I'll start with Newton. I think he's going to have a really big role. I could even envision some situations where Newton, Payne, and Kinlaw are all on the field at the same time. I think the versatility of Kinlaw, like, yeah, he's better on the interior, but he can kind of play a little bit on the edge, especially in the run game. I think there's a world where we do see all three of those guys on the field at the same time. And when you look at the edge rushing group, I mean, it's not really anything to cry home about. I don't think it's probably one of their weakest position groups on the entire roster. So if you simply want to get the best defensive linemen on the field at the same time, I think there's a world where the three guys I just mentioned do play. I also think the team, I know the staff is a little different, but you remember when the depth behind Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne was just not good. I think it was 2023. Those guys were playing like 80-90% of the snaps. That's just not sustainable. And you hear it with injuries. You see it with injuries. Like, if you can get these guys playing 60 to 70, maybe 75% of the snaps, they're going to be a lot fresher in the fourth quarter when you need them to make game-breaking plays versus when Payne was playing 90% of snaps a couple years ago. That's just not a recipe for success to get the most out of those guys. And then on the offensive side, kind of similar. I like Sennett a lot. It's just where he fits into this offense with Zach Ertz ahead of him is tough. Like, you aren't really going to see Ertz come off in passing situations unless, one, he's injured, two, he's gassed, three, they're trying to manage his workload. But then if you want to go into two tight end sets, which we've seen a decent amount in camp, you're not going to take John Bates off the field, who's one of the best blocking tight ends in the league. So I do think it's a little bit of a dilemma, but in the end, talent always wins out. If Sennett shines and practices in the preseason, like you said, they spent a lot of high draft capital on him, I think he's going to eventually see the field. And it kind of reminds me of the Trey McBride situation in Arizona a couple years ago, when I believe Zach Ertz was also there, where
and Cliff Kingsbury
backup. Yeah, and you just couldn't keep him off the field. I mean, if Ben Sennett ends up being 75% of what Trey McBride is, that's a home run pick right there.
And then, Ethan, it's kind of funny. I was talking to Doug offline. Like, the surprising camp for me when I went there on Tuesday was Colson Yankoff. He was getting mad playing time on the field. I don't know if you noticed that as well. I feel like he's going to be a factor in the tight end room. I don't know how often he's going to play, but I would argue he might be ahead of Ben Sennett right now. Like, I don't know if that's a controversial take, but he was getting a run with the ones. He was getting some handoffs as well. So was that surprising to you? Have you noticed that as well? Or what have you heard?
Yeah, I noticed a little bit. I think you might have noticed it more than me, honestly.
Okay.
But I think he's definitely playing a role in. And Cole Turner's another guy who's been here for like 4 years. He's one who always seems to shine in August, but when the pads come on the games, it just doesn't all come together. But he has the size, speed. So the tight end room is an interesting one. I think the top two guys, and then I would imagine Sennett's probably third just based on draft status and ability. But like you said, those other two guys are really pushing for spots. And this year is definitely one where I haven't remembered this team being in this position in a while, where there's like some good players are not going to make the 53. Whereas in years past, it's been, oh, this is the original 53, but let's see what other teams other players get cut from other teams, and then the Commanders make a couple moves to fill out the 53. I don't know how much that's going to be the case this year. It seems like there's a lot more depth on the squad than there's been in years past, and I think that's a testament to Adam Peters and this team actually having legit expectations that they should come close to.
There are two units on this team that I feel like made humongous leaps since last year. And that's the offensive line and the cornerback room. I'm curious, like in your opinion, which one got stronger this year?
Yeah, I think the corner room, if you just look at the guys they trotted out week one last year, Emmanuel Forbes, Mike Davis, I believe, were the two outside guys. Now you have
and St. Juice,
St. Juice as well, Trey Amos, and then Mikey Sanders still has been arguably the best player in the secondary in camp so far. Him and Deebo Samuel have gotten a lot of good work one-on-one with one another. That's been a really fun battle to watch. So that cornerback room, as recently as a year and a half ago, when they drafted Emmanuel Forbes in the first round, that was one of the weakest groups on the team. Now you look at the secondary, that's the strength. I mean, the safeties have a little bit more question marks in the corner. I think you go week one, you have Sanders still in the slot with Trey Amos and Lattimore on the outside. That's a group you can kind of depend on a little bit. I think it is.
Nagami is cornerback 5. Cornerback 5
good
now.
Yeah, he's a good player too, for sure.
Yeah, he was good last year.
Yeah.
I don't know what Deebo did to get the number 1 off him, but
he paid.
That is true. But to your other point, I mean, the offensive line as well. I thought Brandon Coleman did a very solid job as a rookie left tackle last year.
Yep.
But I think moving him in at left guard, I think he has the potential to be one of the best guards in the league. And Laramie Tunsil is definitely the best left tackle they've had since Trent left. So that's a huge upgrade there. And then you look on the right side, Connerly, he's been with the 2s mainly, but he's gotten a little run with the 1s. He's learning a new position, obviously played the left in college, where learning the right now. But he has all the tools where I feel like right now it looks like he might be struggling a little bit, but come the end of the season, that guy should be a really good player. And then you have Wiley, who can play right tackle. He can play right guard. He can be your swing tackle, your depth guard. And when Cosme comes back, Allegretti's going to be your top reserve guard as well. So I think that unit as a whole is as deep as we've seen in quite some time. I think the starters are great, and I think the depth is excellent. So, I mean, I said cornerback at the original answer to your question, but now I think I'm convincing myself to go the other way with offensive line.
Real quick, George. Last year, they rotated the left tackles to get Brandon Coleman ready. Was that a product, do you think, of Coleman being hurt a bunch during the preseason and not getting the work in? Or could you see a scenario this year where they rotate Connerly and Wiley until they feel that, the rookie's fully able to take the spot? Or was last year just a unique situation because of what was going on health-wise?
Yeah, I think it could be a mix of both, honestly. I think last year was a unique situation where they wanted to put Coleman in a position to succeed. And sometimes when you put a third-round rookie at starting left tackle, one of the toughest positions to play in the league, it takes a while for them to get adjusted. And I think at the beginning, the rotation might have been tough, but by the end of the year, I thought he was playing really good football, especially in that Lions game too. In the playoffs, I thought he was excellent. So I think we could see a similar situation. Look, they want Connerly to win the job. I don't think that's any secret. They used a first-round pick on him. It'd be great if he could see the field right away, but I think they want to do whatever they can to put players in positions to succeed. And if they feel like he's not the best player at right tackle in week 1, then I think he's going to start on the bench and eventually work himself in. So I think there's still 6 weeks till week 1, a lot of time for him to kind of come in and take that job. Maybe the first week of camp didn't go the way he wanted, but I think there's still a lot of time for him to kind of show why they drafted him when they drafted him.
And just going along with that, that's what I was going to say. When I was at camp on Tuesday, for one, Laramie Tunzel is a freaking house. Dude. He's a gigantic, huge. He actually like Debo from next Friday. He's just gigantic. And then Brendan Coleman walked right by me. He's gigantic too. He's huge, right? Seeing Josh Connolly in person, he looks every bit at the age of 21. He's a baby face. He's a little bit young, a little bit smaller body. I was actually kind of surprised how small he actually looked in person. So I think it's going to be kind of a work in progress at that right tackle position. I was more bullish before. I think he's going to grow into it. But I think he needs to put on a little more muscle. But I think Brendan Coleman was absolutely just gigantic there. That being said, talking about rookies, talk about Josh Connolly, Trey Amos is standing out, in my opinion. How do you feel about the whole rookie class in general? Have you noticed Jalen Lane, in your opinion? Cam Madron, I think we haven't heard that much about. We've already talked about Bill. So what's your
Yeah, I think Madrano probably had his best day of camp on Tuesday. He had 2 picks in the 11s drill, which is promising. I think he's a guy that special teams will kind of be his niche to start out. And like I touched on earlier, that linebacker room is really crowded. But, I mean, who better to learn from than the guys ahead of him, right? I think this rookie class, it's obviously only 5 guys that were drafted, so a lot smaller than what we've seen in years past. But each one of them seems like a really intentional pick with the path to making an impact right away. Not necessarily being a starter right away, but making an impact one way or another. I mean, Jalen Lane caught that awesome touchdown a couple of days ago in the back corner from Jaden. I think he's going to be on specials, one of their returners. So he's kind of a versatile player. I could see them using a bunch of different ways in a few different packages before really figuring out what the best way to use him is. I'm really optimistic about the rookie class. Another guy, a UDFA, Ja'Cory Brooks, a former 5-star recruit, went to Bama. He impressed the first few days. He caught that the game-tying touchdown in the Iron Bowl from Bryce Young. I think that was in 2021. That was kind of Bryce Young's signature Heisman moment. I didn't really put 2 and 2 together until I saw that highlight once I searched Ja'Cory Brooks on Twitter to kind of learn a little bit more about him. But he's someone who's stood out a little bit. The receiver room, as we touched on earlier, is really deep. So not sure exactly if there's a roster spot there, but that's another guy that's really caught my eye for sure.
How big of a deal is it? I was thinking, how fortunate we were to get Quinn in and how much the players kind of like him. He has the vet rest day schedule like we hadn't seen here in a while. He's very intentional about it. It feels like from afar that vets notice it and appreciate that about what's going on here in Washington now.
Definitely. I think this is the first time where people are like, I want to come play in Washington in quite some time. And it's a product of them obviously having a great season last year. Jaden Daniels looking like the star he is, but it starts from the top down. I think Dan Quinn, everyone that's talked about him just loves playing for him. I mean, you even hear former Cowboys or current Cowboys players like Micah Parsons and others continue to praise Dan Quinn when he's the head coach of one of their biggest rivals, which is a little interesting. So I think his reputation of a player's coach is every bit true. I think the vet off days are smart. They're intentional. There's no reason for guys in their early to mid 30s to be sweating, running through drills every single day in 95-degree heat in the last week of July. That's just not setting them up for success. I think they got a little bit fortunate last year with health of their older guys like Bobby Wagner, Zach Ertz. Those guys were able to stay healthy the whole year. I think this is part of the reason why. Like, they're not overworking them in July and August, so by the time the end of the season comes, they're worn down. I think it's very intentional. I think it's very smart, and I think a lot of people around the league have definitely taken notice.
And I found that pretty powerful. When I was sitting there on the sidelines, I was looking at the roster. I was like, for the first time in a while, we have star power. Like, if it was 2015, it'd be like a whole different story. But like, you see Austin Eckler, Zach Ertz, Bobby Wagner, Von Miller out there. We actually got some notable national people out there. That being said, obviously we're making it a desirable location to get here. We had a great addition with Von Miller over the past week and a half to come over here in DC. He looked quick as hell to me when I was watching. If he has a step, Doug, I was watching. I was like, we got a little something there. Ethan, I'm curious. Like, what are your thoughts? Are you happy with the addition? Where does he fit in your opinion?
Yeah, he's looked the part to me for sure. He does not look his age. I think his last year in Buffalo was kind of slept on a little bit. He was really efficient. And I know PFF grades are only tell 25% of the story, 50% of the story. I don't know. Some people love him. Some people hate him. But if you took away like minimum snaps, he was, I think, the 11th highest rated edge rusher last year. He's really efficient. He had 6 sacks despite playing, I think, only 300 something pass rush snaps. Like this guy still, he said it himself, he can wake up, roll out of bed, and still rush the passer. And I think coming into camp, even before they signed Von Miller, everyone's like, oh, Dante Fowler's gone. Who's going to be that guy that kind of comes in and fills those? I think he had, 10 and a half, 12 and a half sacks last year. Look, I'm not saying Von Miller is going to get to that number. I don't think he's going to get to that number, but I think he is going to provide a player where he's getting doubled a lot and defense or offenses are game planning to stop him. Whereas I don't know if they've had a pass rusher like that since maybe when, Montez Sweat was really good. Chase Young's rookie year is really good, but I don't know if they've never had a pass rusher with the credentials and the accolades that Von Miller has had. All due respect to Ryan Kerrigan, great player, but coaching staff now, but even him, like Von Miller's still a different tier. So I think he should definitely play a role. I think he came here as well because he knows he's going to get an opportunity to see the field. Whereas in Buffalo, they have a lot of good edge rushers up there, and the rotation was a little bit tight. So I think here he comes in. He's clearly the best pass rusher they have right now, even at 36 years old. So I'm really excited to see what he does, even though 24 is a little bit of a weird number for a pass rusher.
I agree.
It is. And this was not a direct quote, but it was something along the lines of, from Von Miller, you don't leave Josh Allen to go play with some scrubs, which I thought was like an interesting kind of comment about why one of the reasons he chose him. Ethan, you mentioned from the top up, I know that AP's in the news now for the McLaurin thing, but outside of that, it's been an interesting way that he's had to build the team kind of because of the lack of talent, the lack of resources that were from the previous draft class. I think one thing that doesn't get talked about, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but both last year's class and this year's class, if Madrano makes the team, which I think he will, every player from the last 2 drafts have made the 53-man roster. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I believe that's correct. I think that's very intentional too. And I would go even further by saying a lot of people have been talking about the average age of this team being one of the oldest in the league. They didn't really have a choice. They had to sign veterans, like you said, because just the drafting under Ron Rivera those 4 years, it simply wasn't very good. So when you have a quarterback like Jaden Daniels, when you exceed expectations going into the year, like people are like, oh, Jaden, he looks good, he should be solid, but no one thought they were going to win 12 games, let alone go to the NFC Championship. Now your window's open, and I think perhaps it might have opened a little bit earlier than maybe they envisioned, and I think that's a reflection of the moves, the draft class they made last year, the bunch of one-year signings they made last year where they brought a decent amount back, but also they have to sign veterans who can play now because they realize the window's open and they can win. Like they were, the score was a little lopsided, but they're a game away from a Super Bowl appearance last year. And I think just being there and seeing the vibe of training camp, like these guys embrace the expectations. They know this is a good team. It's a good team on paper too. And I think they're ready to show that last year was not a fluke.
So, Ethan, speaking of last year, our offense kind of steered the ship, right? We have that offensive weapon, Jaden Daniels, 5th best offense in the league, carried the team, in my opinion, right? The past couple of practices, the defense has been standing out, right? The defense has been kind of, like a blanket, kind of like suffocating the team.
Yeah.
Where do you attest that to? Is that just early training camp woes? Do you think that's our defensive staff is starting to form the defense and their vision? And what do you see right now with our defense and where we are in camp?
Yeah, I think it's a mix. The defense definitely got better than last year. I don't think that's much of a secret, but I also view it's been 6 days. There's a lot of new guys on the offense, a lot of new plays, and like it's the same system, but it's different. And if you look across the league, like there are a bunch of offenses that are struggling in camp right now. And the defense, like they obviously don't know the full system because they're not studying it. They're studying their own system, but like they kind of know what's coming. They've watched film. They've seen a bunch. I think the joint practices, if the offense doesn't look good there, it might be time to start raising a flag of concern. But I think when you're competing against your own guys, it is just tough to tell. And I think I'd be honestly a little more concerned if the offense was just humming out of the gate, because that would mean the defense, in my opinion, is just not where it needs to be. So I think the joint practices, like you said earlier, those are the best ways to determine where a team is, especially when these guys barely play in the preseason anymore. So really looking forward to watching them next week. And then when the Ravens come in a couple weeks too, I think that's going to be a true test, because I think right now, my opinion, I think the Ravens are probably the best team going into the season. So I think it's a great litmus test to kind of see before the year starts.
I know they had problems because of Richmond, but to me, this is really how you figure out your football team and improve the most is with these joint practices. They didn't do a ton of them in the past, and that's another thing I feel like Dan Quinn's doing is getting back to doing those things, because I'm telling you, it won't be that long before the league shuts down the preseason games and they just do these scrimmages and inter practices because the coaches can figure it out better. They can set plans. They can work on things they want to see. So I'm really pumped to see how we stand up with, to your point, a New England team that feels like they're kind of on the same trajectory that this squad is, and then a Ravens team that, that's kind of where I think it's fair to say we're trying to get to that, at least that consistency.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think Drake May, really good young quarterback. I think that'll be a good test for this defense. And in a couple weeks, I mean, the Ravens offense and the Ravens defense are both arguably top 5 units. So the team as a whole should really get tested in those. And then just one other point I wanted to make. So we touched on this at the beginning. Like, I didn't come back into the Commanders beat mix until after week 1 last year, but talking with a bunch of people that have been there the whole time, like on the beat and stuff, I asked them, when did you kind of realize this offense could, like, Jaden was going to be special or pretty good? And a lot of them were like, the joint practices in Miami, the way he was performing, that was kind of like, oh, this guy is legit. And I think if you look back on that now, you're like, wow, it wasn't just a couple really good days. Like, he kind of showed then. And then the Bengals game, obviously, week 3 was his coming out party.
Exactly right.
I think those joint practices go a long way.
So, Ethan, I think we'll leave you on this, I suppose. I think his first preseason game with the Patriots, I don't think a lot of starters getting a lot of playing time. It's going to be more of a backup. Josh Johnson's show, probably. Marcus Mariota. Right. What are you looking for, and who do you want to stand out? Who will be some of that vivid that pops out to you for the first game?
Yeah, a couple guys you mentioned earlier, Jordan McGee, Tyler Owens, just like the depth guys on defense that could end up fighting for starting roles. I mean, the safety group as a whole is really intriguing to me. I think the Patriots game, like you said, it's not going to be a lot of starters. I could see a decent amount of twos even getting some rest. But
I can see that.
The other 2 preseason games, I think it'll be a lot more fun to watch. Just kind of, I don't know how much Jaden and the starters will play, but I would like to think they'd get at least a little bit of action. So I think the later we get into August, it'll be a lot more fun, and you'll be able to get a lot more conclusions than maybe we'll get from the preseason game.
We've seen all the word about how much money they put into the facilities. Have you guys gotten into the locker room yet? I knew there was like a time when you could and could not.
Not yet. Okay. I don't believe the locker room opens until the Wednesday before week 1. All of the interviews and stuff have been done coming off the field and then in the media tent. So, yeah, not yet, but the pictures look great.
Yes, they do. One last one before we get out of here, for me at least. Who in your mind has the biggest to prove this year, the most to prove?
Whew, that's tough. I don't know if Deebo Samuel's the easy answer. I think he kind of knows that too. He kind of brushed it off a little. He was like, yeah, I know it's a big year, but I'm just going to play, do my game, and see how the cards fall. He's an easy one. I think Laramie Tunsil too, trying to earn another deal.
That's been mine. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's a guy where, you don't really see top 5 left tackles getting moved a lot. So clearly either Houston didn't want to pay him or couldn't afford him or something, but he's definitely coming in here. He wants a new deal, I assume. And I think a big year here, he could definitely do that, because that's one position where we've seen guys really play at an elite level into their mid to late 30s.
If you're Washington, do you sign him like midway through the season, or like an extension, or he's got 2 years, right? So essentially, better to just let this year play out and revisit it at the end of the year, or it's one of these deals where it's like, I'd rather just get this thing done to be over with, because you don't spend as many resources on a guy like that if you don't plan on paying him.
Yeah, I would say you kind of let it be for now, see how the year goes. I mean, Connerly, I think at some point they will eventually want him on the left side. or maybe he stays on the right side. I mean, we saw that with Penei Sewell in Detroit, where he played left tackle in college. Now one of the best right tackles, if not the best right tackle in the league. So, yeah, I'm interested to see where it goes. I don't think there's any urgency to sign him to an extension, but I think if they were to do it, they definitely want to do it before going into the last year of his deal. So maybe like next March, next April, that time frame.
Ethan, this was great, man. I'm glad that you're back on the beat and making it happen. We'll have to, we'll get you back once the season starts, man. This was great.
Yeah, this was awesome. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you, bud.